Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended lifeforms are so amazingly primitive that two of them still think doing a podcast called Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea is a pretty neat idea. These podcasters have, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Actually, this is the solution.
Hey, Jeff, what is this?
Well, Brian, this is the second volume of the Dirk Gently Holistic Detective Agency comic book by IDW, and this one is titled A Spoon Too Short.
It certainly is.
Yes, and on the cover he doesn't even have a spoon.
No, he doesn't have a spoon.
He just has a really tiny teacup.
Yep, which is really interesting. I mean, the cover is a murder board or a evidence board covered with everything that you could imagine. There does happen to be a spoon hanging on a clip on one of the strings.
Yes.
And a little tag on most of the evidence, quote unquote. His teacup, interestingly enough, has the tag A4 on it.
Yes. Yep.
His rhinoceros is A12.
So let's look at a couple of things on here and try and figure out where they have come from. One, they always have a cat. So here's the cat next to him pulling on the yarn.
Yep.
See how many references they might have to other works. In the middle next to his head to the right, I believe it looks like a record.
Yes, it does. Or a CD.
Right. I wonder if that's Hot Potato.
Yeah, there you go. It could be Hot Potato. And then down in the bottom, there's a picture of Douglas Adams in a frame.
Yep.
And I can't quite tell what's written on it. It looks like Alias 15? Or what would you say that says?
It's that was probably the artist who drew the cover.
Oh, okay.
Ilias.
Hey, that's cool.
In 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it. That's exactly.
He put it on a Post-it note with all the other evidence markers to blend right in. I always like playing Find Wall,
Find Waldo pictures. Yeah, exactly.
Who signed this? Yes. So if you saw the spoon, if you go to the left of the spoon, there's a black and white picture, which I imagine looks like Thor's hammer.
Oh, yep. And again, down on the desk, there's a book called Africa.
Yep.
Which could be his trips,
It could be, yep.
And below that, there's a book that you can tell it's the spine says Douglas Adams.
Right.
But you can't tell the reference to what novel that might be.
Nope.
There's a picture of one of the characters from the previous comic over by his right ear. She's got her...
Oh, looks like Tanya.
Yeah, Tanya. Her deerstalker cap on and her glasses. And Bach is written below that.
Oh, right. Yes.
It's fun.
And then there's music above it. So that must be Bach music.
Yep.
And I'm going to say that they do have it in here. So... right above the picture that we think is Tanya, there is a Post-it note that just says A42, and it's circled.
Absolutely. That's great.
So we're going to go through the first couple of pages. I did a little preview. They're really short. The first one is a previously on, which is kind of interesting because it says that this case takes place after the novel Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, and before the events in the comic The Interconnectedness of All Kings, and the upcoming TV series. So, previously on is technically after that comic. Previously, we told you what happens next.
Right.
And then I like the next page. It's a list of all the characters. So who are all the characters in this one?
Okay. I've only got Dirk Gently.
Exactly. They've only put one person.
I'm looking and looking. I'm thinking, am I really only supposed to say Dirk Gently? Yep. Mm-hmm.
So they're not giving away anybody who may show up in this comic book at this time.
Mm-hmm. And it says, Dirk Gently, a detective with a belief in the fundamental interconnectedness of all things, a unique relationship with the laws of probability and physics, and a love of cats and pizza.
Yes. Was there any pizza on the cover?
That's a good question.
I zip back a little bit and I don't see any pizza.
Nope, I don't see any pizza either.
All right, so the first page of the story, page 1. Okay, there's a interesting style of this comic book, which is quite different, but I think it's because it's a flashback to Dirk's childhood.
Right, so it's drawn in a style reminiscent of an old-timey comic book.
Yes, and it's called The Great Treehouse Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And Dirk has all of his toys around him, stuffed animals, robots, action figure things, and it looks like they're playing cards.
Right, and this little robot friend is our friend Marvin.
Yes, yes, from the movie.
Yep.
Not from the TV show.
Exactly.
And Dirk is saying, "What'll it be, boys?" as he's about to lay down a card. And I did mention that it was called The Great Treehouse Adventure, but what I didn't tell you is this is him in his treehouse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And quite high up it looks. And while he's there playing cards, it appears a chain with a hook has been thrown. Hooks onto the treehouse with a couple of thunks. So we'll find out on page 2 what happens to that treehouse.
What's all that thunking about?
So here we get more of a close-up view of the card game in progress. And on the last page, I didn't mention that I kind of saw a cowboy because I just thought it was a cowboy. But evidently, it is the Tom Baker era Doctor Who action figure. And he's complaining that Time Lords never know when to fold.
As he's gathering up his candy winnings.
Yes. And it appears that he feels a little bit guilty because Marvin is accusing him of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "No, damn your cogs and circuits. I didn't cheat. How would I have known your hand? I am not." And then all of a sudden there's a vroom vroom sound. And he is trying to eat candy and figure out what's going on. And he's confused. And then check out that bottom panel.
Vroom! He's flying in the air. His hair's asunder. And everything's shaking.
And up in the air. So it almost looks like the treehouse is coming down.
Wow.
Now, with all of these vroom vrooms and the big hook and the treehouse coming down, when I turn the page, I better see a bulldozer.
Oh my goodness.
So we will go to page 3. So Dirk has run to the window of the treehouse and he's looking out and he's looking down and he says, "No, don't." And then you see the entire side and bottom of the treehouse fall away with a great big whap, and his toys are falling and Dirk is falling.
And miraculously, at the same moment, a rope thrown by one of the 3 kids in the bottom right-hand panel has gone over a branch and caught Dirk by the leg around his foot.
Yes.
Where he is suspended in air inches above the ground before he hits, falling directly on his head.
With an ow.
Yeah, that's right. And the bottom panel shows 3 children with a chain hoist that they've obviously used to destroy the treehouse.
Not a bulldozer.
Grinning manically as Dirk is suspended by his foot.
And amazingly speechless.
Not a common sight.
There's 3 word balloons, all with nothing in them. So we will go to page 4. So Dirk seems to wake up in a cold sweat, sitting up in bed with his cat next to him, thinking that, strangely, that is one of the happiest memories of his childhood.
Yep, his cat meows, and we are reintroduced to the title of this episode, A Spoon Too Short, Chapter 1, Something Nasty in the Woodshed, it says.
Yes. So you've got Dirk having his foot lassoed, but he seemed to have gone to bed with a tie on, which is really loose and kind of looking like it's a noose around his neck.
It does indeed.
And in the previous page, when he was hanging upside down, there seemed to be this steam coming off of him, and also seems to be coming off of him now, and I'm not quite sure exactly what that is, unless it's just...
the dream evaporating in front of his face or something, maybe? Something like that?
That could be.
Who knows? He's desperately panicked at this moment.
Yes, and it's reminiscent of the green steam that was life force drained from people in the last comic book.
You're right, it is, absolutely.
So we're going to go on to page 5. So it seems now that he is awake, his phone has started ringing, and the caller ID says Sally Mills. He answers the phone with his, "This is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. No clue too small, no detail unconnected." And then he has to explain himself.
He says, "Yes, I have caller ID. Yes, Sally, I knew it was you. Yes. No, you're right. It wasn't strictly necessary for me to give you the blurb. I'll be there immediately," he says, as he pets his cat.
And it's purring. And his room's a mess.
It is a
They
mess.
see an overview of the room, and it's a complete mess. But there's some fun things in here.
He's got his Doctor Who doll up on the shelf, and
He's kept that from his childhood. And a pizza box on the floor with a couple of pieces. Yes, finally. Finally some pizza.
He's got tea and a tea bag and a magnifying glass laying on the table next to the bed as well.
And for those who may not be familiar with Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, Sally Mills is a nurse that he met in that book. So, on to page 6. So on the last page, Dirk said that he would be there immediately, and now he's confessing, not immediately, not even close. And he is on his way to meet Sally in his little car.
Right.
And where's he going, Brian?
Well, he's off to the Woods Head Hospital. So apparently, I made an error. It wasn't a woodshed. It was Woods Head. And of course, the Woods Head Hospital is from Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul.
Yes.
And you were saying?
That was the hospital that specialized in, or some would say collects, the most bizarre and grotesque of illnesses. And because Dirk is something of a connoisseur of the bizarre and grotesque, that's one of his favorite places. He even had a hand in getting Sally her job there, and she likes to give him a heads up when something really special comes along. So now he's gotten to Sally's door, and we meet Sally, and he says...
And do we ever?
Yeah. Sally Mills. She's a nurse, but normally one with more clothes. Perhaps that's a clue.
As she stands there in what could easily be described as a stripper's outfit.
Yes.
Mimicking a nurse.
Right.
And she says to Dirk, "Let me guess, there's no such word as punctual in your dictionary."
Right. So on to page 7. So at the top of this page, the panel goes all the way across, and we see 3 versions of Dirk, who is running towards Sally. And as he's running, he is taking his coat off and covering her up with it.
And he says to her, "And not a moment too soon. Out, you soul-sucking sexual succubus. Out and let my friend Sally return."
And Sally says, "Dirk, you idiot, it's Halloween."
"When demons walk, my point exactly," he says.
And then we get our little social message of the issue where she says that this is my costume. I'm a sexy nurse, which is ironic because I am, in fact, a nurse who is a sexy woman. I am drawing attention between the objectified concept and the reality. Also, the older male patients seem to like it.
Oh, absolutely perfect. Way to go, Sally.
Yeah, and the older patients are just gawking with big grins on their face.
Oh, my goodness.
So, page 8.
You had something interesting for me to see? Oh, my gosh. Well, Jeff, I had no idea where this page was going.
Yes, and I'm still not sure where it's headed.
If you ask me, it's the right direction.
Yeah. So it starts out innocent enough, where Sally's giving Dirk a hard time about putting on some weight. And he's saying that weight is relative, and he has a holistic diet. And I really like the idea of the holistic diet.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us what he says the holistic diet is.
If everything is connected, which it is, then all food is connected.
Yeah.
Therefore, eating anything at all means that in some sense you are eating everything.
Exactly.
Therefore, selective eating is a waste of time.
Yes.
Therefore, and
then he gets punched by Sally for talking nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And she thinks there might be a dashing figure underneath that old coat and all that pizza.
And then Dirk says to her, "You said you had something interesting to show me."
And she said, "Follow me." And then we get a really nice view of her other side as she's walking away. And she asked Dirk if it was interesting enough for you.
And Dirk, in a subliminal comment, says, "I'm sure I have no idea what she's referring to."
Page 9. So Dirk followed Sally downstairs into the basement, and they're looking through a viewing window at a group of normal-seeming people sitting around a table, sitting in a chair, just kind of hanging out and drawing. And she said they are the Kingdom Browns.
And Dirk says, "Why are you keeping them down here? Do they spontaneously combust when exposed to sunlight?"
And she says no.
"Do they recite stock prices, mimetically repeating everything Dustin Hoffman says?"
No. And what?
Oh, never mind. That was before your time.
But it wasn't.
No, it was not. It was concurrent with her time in the story.
And she says, "Don't make fun of Rain Man."
And he says, "So what's so unusual about them anyway?"
And she says, "Wait for it."
Very confusingly.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it seems like they all start talking at the same time, but their word bubbles are blank. Kind of the way Dirk's was when he was hanging upside down after falling out of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
House. Or treehouse, as most would say.
Oh, I love it.
All right.
Oh, gosh.
We're going to figure out what's going on. We're going to go to page 10.
I hope it helps.
The top panel of this page is inside the room with the Kingdom Browns, and they all seem to be arguing and yelling at each other, except nothing is coming out and all of the word bubbles are blank.
And then Dirk says to Sally, They can't speak? A family of mutes? That's unusual, but hardly odd, by our standards, Sally. I mean, we have effed the ineffable, danced the light fantastic, drunk mead with Thor.
Sally says, well, you have. I just helped clean up the sick after.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
And then she tells him that until 2 weeks ago, they were a perfectly normal family of talking people. And then one day on a family holiday, they came back from a walk voiceless. And she says, that's not all. Go in and examine them.
And at that moment, then Dirk busts through the door and describes the technique with which he plans to recover their voices.
Yes.
He asks them to tell him, by means of writing down everything that they know about what happened, and he will connect all the dots.
Yes. As he always does.
Mm-hmm.
So, page 11. On the top panel of this page, Dirk is standing there looking very smug at Sally, and he gets handed a piece of paper from the oldest gentleman of the Kingdom Browns. And when he looks at it, it's just a bunch of squiggles.
And then Sally says to him, did you really think that giving them a pen and paper hadn't occurred to us?
And Dirk is like, are they foreign?
And Sally responds, only if you count Hampshire.
So Dirk comes up with a hypothesis that they're an embedded spy ring concealed undercover in darkest Hampshire, conditioned to communicate only in cipher.
And of course, Sally is looking very credulous at him.
Yeah. Alternative hypothesis. They are possessed. This writing bears a strong resemblance to the automatic writing of Victorian mediums.
Mm-hmm, she says.
Yeah.
All with that same expression. You've seen every woman give it to you.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Page 12.
So on the top of this page, Sally suggests to Dirk that he ask them a single question that they can answer by signing.
So Dirk kneels down in front of the wife and holds up his hand and says, hello, how many fingers am I holding up? And he's holding up 4 fingers. Just looking nice and calm and peaceful, nothing threatening about him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a little bothered by it.
I'd say so.
She's sweating and her jaw's clenched. She's grabbing her face with her hands. And then
she headbutts him right into the nose.
He's like, "Arr! Not again!"
Another broken nose for Dirk.
Yes. Page 13.
Interesting page. It's got lots of bubbles on it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of bubbles. Yeah. So exactly what is that circle of?
Well,
what is she pressing into where?
Okay, so the one on the right of him where the text bubble is obviously her cleavage. Okay.
Yes.
And then below the text bubble to the left is his crotch up against her crotch.
Yes, which I'm trying to figure out how that's working. She must be moving around quite a bit.
Yes. And then, of course, the one below the half circle of his head is her legs against the inside of his legs. And the little bow is the bow that's on the top of her thigh.
Oh, okay. So she stood up.
Right. So their crotches are very close together there.
So if you go back a page and look at Sally in the top left, you can see where those two bows are. Mid-thigh.
Yeah, the little bow ties are on the top of her thigh, yeah.
Yes. So it's not crotch to crotch. That's mid-thigh against his crotch.
Right. And then actually the one that's on the bottom right corner, those are her undergarments and her legs.
Yeah, that's her 2 legs.
Between his legs, yeah.
Yes.
Not that you have to be that graphic in your description. Okay, so in this scene, Sally and Dirk are working together to mend Dirk's nose.
Yes.
Sally leans into him and says, just like old times.
And Dirk says, I made old times.
And Sally says to him, what is it about you that inspires even the most non-violent people to want to break your face?
And Dirk says, they've lost all means of communication.
And that's why I called you, says Sally. It's very odd indeed. And she's remarking about the differences between nonverbal and verbal communication.
Sally also talks about they've never even heard of one person spontaneously losing all ability to communicate, let alone an entire family.
Right.
And while she is tending to Dirk's nose, she apparently is moving around and pushing every part of her body against every part of Dirk's body.
And Dirk is effectively losing all ability to communicate.
Yes. Well, the best way to staunch the blood coming out of your nose is to have it move to another part of your body.
It's very effective in this scene.
Yes. So, page 14. We should apologize to anybody who's listening to this.
What's that, NSFF?
Yeah,
what are those initials?
And it doesn't even get any better.
No, it doesn't get better. And the next page continues on. What are those initials? Not safe for work.
FW.
FW.
Yes. On this page, we see a better view of what's actually happening and the positions that they are in, where Dirk is sitting in something like a dentist chair, and Sally's leaned over in front of him, and she cracks his nose back into place. And when he screams in pain, she calls him a big baby, but then says, by the way, there's a party later.
And Dirk says, oh, you're the baby. You're asking the wrong questions.
And she's like, what?
This isn't a how problem, he says. It's the other sort, and I've seen it before.
Say again?
In the bottom panel, Dirk says, the gift of communication, the thing that makes us human, has been taken from this family. The question is who has taken it, and secondarily, why?
Yes. Page 15. This page is completely different than all of the other pages, and in fact seems disconnected, but because everything is connected, I'm sure it is connected. Basically, he's just talking to himself, thinking about how he's a holistic detective, and he's had a lot of different clients, and lots of them are murdered or dead before he's hired. Anyway, he says basically that he knows from long and bitter experience that on cases like this, that the interconnectedness of all things will often result in people trying very hard to kill me, and that he has learned that when presented with a unique case, by far the best thing to do is to throw himself immediately and with all available force in the opposite direction, away from all available leads. But unfortunately, the Kingdom Brown case has no available leads, and that's presenting him with a problem.
Right, and as you described, this page is quite unique. There's a banner that goes on the left side of the page from top to bottom, and it's a cityscape in a blue hazy background and punctuated with circles of color, and it shows what appears to be a random path selected by Dirk through the city as he passes various people who live within the city.
Yes. He's wandering the town with no direction or destination in mind. Page 16. What wasn't immediately obvious on the previous page, which is pointed out to us on this page, is in all of those different circles, he was just following random people.
Mm-hmm.
And the last person we saw him following was this striking woman, and he has now figured that wherever this lady leads me, it seems safe to say it will have nothing to do with the strange patients at the Woods Head. And he's stalking her from around corners and following her.
Right. And of course, that's where we get one of our little Easter eggs.
Yep.
We've got, as he's there on the edge of the building, it says Hot Black Desiardo Residential Consultants.
Yes.
Oh.
And we all know that real firm got a lot of flack when he stole their name to use in his TV show and his book, and they thought that they stole his name where it was actually the other way around.
Oh my goodness. And in the end, where's she actually headed, Jeff?
She is headed to the Dirk Gently office at 22A Peckender Street. Evidently, his office is below the model, but above French lessons. So, page 17. And then, in an abrupt shift of story, we are now in Tsavo National Park in Kenya, looking at elephants at a watering hole. And it's dusk. And then it's still dusk. And then it's more... Nope, it's night now.
And then the confusing bottom two panels.
Yes.
And if you can make sense of that, I'd applaud you.
Well, apparently one of the three elephants has seen something that has both confused and frightened him.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are these mysterious lights that seem to be coming up out of the watering hole. And we will find out about those on page 18. No, we won't. On this page, it's a double-page spread of what can only be called friendly banter. So it's very hard to summarize friendly banter, so we are going to do our best to portray the friendly banter as it is happening.
Exactly. And since it seems so appropriate, I'm going to be the striking woman.
Okay.
And just so I don't abuse it when it comes around, my name happens to be Tamasha Najee Travers.
Okay. And they are in Dirk's office, and they both have cups of tea, and she's about to speak.
Would you like me to start at the beginning?
No.
No?
No. Only plotters start at the beginning. I start at the most interesting bits. It saves time. Why were you following me following you?
I beg your pardon?
I was following you.
You were... Why?
Please, pay attention. I was following you, however, you were looking for me. Therefore, you were following me, following you.
I'm not sure that makes any sense, Mr. Gently. As I've said, my name is Tamasha Najee Travers, and I'm an assistant professor of anthropology.
An assistant?
Assistant professor.
I had assumed you were a client, but an assistant is even better.
But...
Or perhaps you are an assistant and a client simultaneously. That would be extremely irregular, and result in some circularity of payment. Pray, proceed.
I've been trying. You keep interrupting.
This is me being quiet so you can proceed.
I was referred to you by our mutual friends Richard and Susan McDuff.
Way.
Yes, Susan's maiden name is Way. I thought you weren't going to interrupt me.
That was scarcely a light interjection, still less an interruption.
I need you to come to Kenya with me to meet the tribe without words.
Ho 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 ho. Page 19. Or technically it would be page 20 since this was a double page spread.
Mm-hmm.
So back in Dirk's apartment, he's all alone with his cat, and he's scratching the cat, and he's saying that my methods conspired against me, an entire tribe suffering from the same inexplicable symptoms as the Kingdom Browns. The mysteries of the Woods Head seems to lead to the darkest Africa, and an assistant client had appeared on cue to take me there. She hadn't even questioned my expenses policy.
And then we zap back to the party, right?
We are at the party in progress, the costume Halloween party at the Woods Head.
And I absolutely love it. I mean, I know we're going to get into some of the details here, but there's a picture, of course, with Sally Mills. Mm-hmm. And next to Sally is a man dressed like Tigger. Yep. In front of her, to her right, is looks like a lady maybe with the hair color, dressed as a Dalek.
Yep, absolutely.
And then my favorite, it's only a guess, but it looks like behind her on her left is a gentleman dressed like the robot from Red Dwarf. Does it look like him?
I am unfamiliar with Red Dwarf, and I am
really
sad to say I have never seen it, though I've planned to watch it many times. I've just never gotten around, but I will take your word. Goodness. Now I'm going to have to watch it.
Yes, well, now we're going to have something to entertain you with, because you're going to have to watch Red Dwarf.
Yes. And in the middle of the party, Sally's phone rings.
And Sally answers the phone saying, "Hello, Dirk? I thought you were going to come to this party." And then on the next panel, she says, "What? I can't hear you. They were on holiday. I'll have to check the exactitudes, but I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in Africa." And then she takes her stethoscope and sticks it in the mouth of the Tigger who's trying to approach her with pucker lips.
Yes.
And she says, Dirk, are you there?"
And then the final panel of this issue is showing Dirk's empty apartment, where he has sliced open an entire bag of cat food and poured all the milk into a giant pan because he is going to be away for a while.
Right. And in the bottom it says, "Next time on Dirk Gently, the tribe with no words."
And just when you think it couldn't get any more confusing, they keep managing to up the game. There's no way anybody could ever figure out the arc of this in advance.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, Jeff, some reason this seems like a short episode.
Yep.
But it is the end of this comic.
Right.
So what are we going to do next?
Well, I think we're going to keep the same schedule that we kept for the last comic. And this month, we're going to do the first 3 issues in the first 3 weeks of the month. And we will do the 4th and 5th issues next month. So next will be in 1 week. It will be issue 2 of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, A Spoon Too Short.
And I assume we're going to be visiting the darkest parts of Africa to extend this story to its next level.
You would think, but I really wouldn't be surprised if we didn't.
Yes, that's quite true. We have no idea where it's going from here. Quite interesting.
So, Brian, now that I have talked about what's coming up next, I think it's time to say this is the end. Thank you for listening to this. A new episode is released on the first Thursday of every month. A special thank you goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com. While there, you can find links to all of my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can contact us via email at digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. You can message us on Twitter, or should I say X, at Watches Idea, and our Instagram is Watches Idea Podcast.
This This has been a Fruits for Thought production.